Joel, do you feel a level of confidence if people have you had anyone ask you about wine since the pod is potted?
First of all, let me answer your first question. I just turn on that Joel charm and I recommend something and pray to God that it works. That's number one. Number two, my mom does ask me a lot about wine. Here's the kicker. She doesn't drink wine, but she'll call me after every episode and she'll be like, "Oh, I loved learning."
She really likes the podcast.
Wine. She loves it. She's one of our...
She doesn't drink wine?
She doesn't drink wine. I think she might, she wants to sometimes because we describe them and we make them, sound approachable and all that good stuff when they are. I think she wants to try some, but no, she doesn't drink it, but she's learning about it. And she'll call it, she'll rattle off fast. She'll be like, I didn't know that's how they made this, or that's the difference between these things. And I'm like, yeah, pretty cool. You should try some.
Yeah. Drink some wine, Mom. Speaking of moms and wine, I am excited to announce that at long last, Kathy Kaleli confirmed that she listened to a few episodes of our show.
Wow.
Kathy is a staunch white Zinfandel drinker.
Okay, more white Zins.
Pause for effect. She asked why we haven't done a white Zin yet. I pivoted, and we but she talked about how she was inspired by our Chardonnay episode, and it was such a kickback from a while ago because that was very early on, and she was talking about how she tried a Chardonnay and really liked it, and then got another Chardonnay and didn't like it at all, and she was really confused about it. And then she listened to our episode where she learned about warm climate and cool climate Chardonnay, and that was like a light bulb for her because she was like, oh. And that was just a nice little moment.
I love that.
Very cool.
How about Joan, Colin?
Yeah, she's been a long time listener, but she actually went out and bought a bottle of the orange from the basement and shared it with some of her friends, and they all really enjoyed it, which I thought was really cool. It's actually
that's a Joel pick right there.
Yeah, it is. So they took the recommendation and enjoyed it, which I absolutely love. That really warms the heart that people are enjoying what we're talking about.
Love it. Welcome to Stop Wasting Your Wine, a wine review podcast where we waste our wine so you don't have to. On this episode, we review
a red wine from California.
Thanks so much for joining us. I am Joel. Welcome back to the show. Of course, I'm joined by two of the most rebellious guys I know, Aaron and Colin. Guys, how are we?
Oh, just over here breaking the law, causing some
causing
some ruckus.
I figured you would be over there.
Yeah, me.
You're a bad boy. Yep.
To listener at home, Colin is a rule breaker.
Oh, yeah.
Colin, when we all lived together in college, we just had to reel Colin in all the time.
No, that's my personality.
Did you just
over the top?
While Aaron was talking, you ripped off that tag from the mattress that says "Don't rip off." What are you doing over there?
I did. Listen,
cool
I like to live.
Guy.
I like to live on the edge, Joel.
I do want to ask you guys. Did you? I was thinking about this the other day, so I do want to pose this question to you. Were you guys ever grounded when you were kids?
I was, yeah.
You guys do that?
No, but I was a rule follower. I was a rule follower growing up, and then by the time I got to shifty high school, sneaky drinking behavior, kind of stuff like that, I was enough of a responsible kid that my parents kind of turned a blind eye to stuff. I never.
Yeah.
I was my parents didn't ground. They did the Catholic guilt. It was my if I did something wrong, my dad would go, "Look how you're making your mother feel right now."
Oh no, that's so bad.
Well, look, tell her you're sorry, and that was it. That was all.
Wow,
that was all it needed to be.
How about you, Joel? Did you get grounded?
I felt a little chastised as you were saying that right there. No, and I mean, I think I was a rule follower kind of guy too. Didn't stray too much, but probably a couple things that they could have. It was just never a thing really in our house. We had a lot of some talking twos and things like that, but never like oh, you can't leave the house for 2 weeks or whatever it was.
Yeah, no, the only time I was really grounded only one time, and we had a sliding pocket door that separated our kitchen and our living room, and I forgot exactly what the situation was, but I was real mad, and I slammed the door and I broke it.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I know. I'm telling you, living life on the edge.
What was the sentence? How long?
I think it was like 2 weeks. I broke
That's
the
a
door.
serious
It wasn't.
grounding.
Yeah, it wasn't fixable.
No, let me tell you, I was established as like the responsible person in my friend group. Like it was the role that I had to play. Like I had to be the person being like, guys, we shouldn't do this. And that was so cemented that when we went to college, first year in college, a bunch of my buddies from New Hampshire came down and visited, and we had a plan for spring break, and the plan started to fall apart. I'm not going to go into the details because it's still pretty traumatic. But I put aside all of my, like, I'm not going to be the wet blanket this time. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to say, screw it. Guys, let's do this. And we all got arrested.
Oh, boy.
Wow.
Oh, I think I remember that story.
Wow.
And in the end, it all like kind of worked out. It was a big misunderstanding. Like it was a whole thing. It didn't turn into a big deal. But the narrative right after that was, you are never allowed to be the person to like say it's okay. Like your job is to say no. This is what happens when you say yes. You have to say no. And that was like the one time I was like, I'm gonna be rebellious. We all got arrested.
And then you forgot about that when we got to college, because you were definitely the yes man in college.
Yeah.
It's in the safety of our home. Okay?
Of course.
Yeah, it was.
That made it
sure.
sound like it was like you were a wild man. But no, you just always wanted to.
No, that was.
Yeah, I definitely remember some.
Yeah. Let's be real. Like my yes man was like, hey guys, let's go to the really low key pub and drink a bunch of beer. Like I like that was not. I was not the guy that went to the club.
Or to the room that we aptly named the beer pong room in our house that we shared.
Man, rebellious was the right word to kick us off, Joel, because I can't think of a more hardcore group than the three of us.
I know. Look at
it. Here we are, late 30s with our kids on a Tuesday night drinking wine.
Hey, some of us are still in our mid 30s. Thank you very much.
Oof.
And the reason I asked this question of you guys too, I know you mentioned at the top, Aaron, we were drinking a red wine from California. Can you tell us a little bit more, and this is all going to make sense, about the red wine from California that we're drinking today?
Wait, I just got it. Oh my God, Joel. Are you
didn't see that coming?
No, I didn't. I just looked at the bottle and there. Wow.
Hold on. Let me read this stuff because I am missing what I'm feeling like a dummy because I miss all this. Okay, here we go. So yes, we have a red wine from Grounded Wine Company. Grounded by
See what I did there? See what I did?
We're grounded.
Got me thinking.
Grounded. Hey, look at you.
Well done.
Hey, yeah.
Okay, well done, Joel. Grounded. The Grounded Wine Company, and you know the name on these wines specifically is Grounded by Josh Phelps. This is a 2021 Cabernet Sauvignon. This is from California. It is an ABV of 13.9%, that magical number when people don't want to write 14% on the back of their bottles. And a shocking twist this week. While I was able to find my wine at Total Wine, it was not available at Total Wine down in the free state of Florida. It is sold at Target down there, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's where we had to get it.
So this wine is around the place. It is different stores depending on location, and it's sold at $14.99 down south, all the way up to $16.49 up here in New Jersey.
I tell you what, if I didn't have to also get some paper towels and diapers for my daughter, I would have been real bummed about having to actually go down to Target, but I did, so it all worked out. And then the whole time that I was getting this one too and picking it up, I was wondering why this wine. I mean, I'm into it. I have no reason not to be into it, but it's just one that was not on my radar at all. Colin, I believe you picked this wine. Why is this the wine that we're trying this week?
Yeah, so if you've been following along, I'm kind of a wine nerd, and part of that...
What?
You don't have to
Yeah, I
follow
know.
along too much to know this. Yeah.
Shocking, right? Yeah, I know.
For those of you that have seen a picture of Colin,
Well,
What about my look says wine nerd? Huh? Aaron, over to you.
do you have to ask? Do you have to ask? Look at yourself. Look at yourself. Take out a mirror. Take out your phone. Look at yourself.
All right.
You wino. Continue your story.
Okay. All right. So part of that is listening to other wine podcasts besides our own. And one of the podcasts I listen to often is Inside Winemaking with Jim Duane. It's a really cool, in-depth look at the world of winemaking. And he actually had Josh Phelps on the podcast. So I listened to an interview with Josh Phelps, and I really liked the way he talked about
Famous Olympian.
how is he really? This Josh Phelps? I don't think that was part of the pod.
It's Michael Phelps.
Oh, Michael
It's
Phelps.
Michael Phelps.
Anyway, I really like the way he talked about the decisions he made when it comes to picking the grapes and his winemaking process. And this is a bulk wine, but it sounded like a bulk wine that was made with some intent and some love and some care. So I wanted to try it. It's at a great price point, and obviously it's everywhere. So I thought it would be an interesting try because the winemaker sounded like such a cool, interesting dude.
Colin, when you say bulk wine, what can you kind of put that in what your definition is? Because yeah, go ahead, and I want to speak a little more to that.
So like in this case, it's based on the amount of cases produced. Now, bulk wine can come with some negative connotations, and I'm pretty sure I've even used bulk wine negatively before, but in this case, more referring to the fact that they just make a lot of this.
I mean, it's definitely a cool and huge step to see that, like, this is a wine that's being sold at Target and Total Wine and, potentially other places. Like, that's very cool to be able to get to that level.
And I think what drew me to it too is usually, when you see wine at that scale, it's usually you don't necessarily know the winemaker, or the winemaker's not necessarily a big part of the brand. But in this case, it totally is. So, for somebody to put their name on the bottle means that they really care.
I'm wondering, I don't know the guy, but it sort of seems to fit into that sort of thing like we were talking about last week with Cheryl from Savi B, where it's like, people trying to make wine in a way that's like, approachable and not this big, scary thing. It's just good wine made in kind of a laid back way, or at least presented in kind of a laid back way. So, it's interesting. It's kind of like the two worlds that we've talked about sort of separately, the bulk wine and then kind of like the cool, try to do something cool and new and fresh with wine kind of coming together. I don't think we've really experienced one where the two melds. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes today. So cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for bringing that into our world. Looking forward to giving it a go. Before we do that, though, been a little bit, Colin, since we've learned from you, and I'm feeling like I really want to today. Can you share some wisdom with us? Leave us a little bit smarter about wine today.
I want to be smarter.
This is the only thing you will learn.
Well, hopefully I can help with that. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about the idea of terroir. And I know
Terroir.
And I know we touched on it in previous episodes. I think we even brought up last week, Cheryl Savi B has a pretty neat terroir t-shirt out you can buy right now. But I don't think we've ever really taken a deep dive into it. So I wanted to do a little bit more than just scratch the surface. And terroir is one of those wine terms that when I would say normal people hear it, their eyes kind of roll into the back of their heads, because it's one of those things that it's not really well defined. When you hear the word terroir, unless you're into wine, you would have really no idea what they're even talking about. And it also just sounds super pretentious.
I was going to say, it's tough to even say it without kind of sounding pretentious.
I still can't spell it.
I'm not even going to go there, but it's kind of like people who say croissant instead of croissant here. But there's no way to take it down that level,
Yeah, and even just talking about it, listening to somebody say like, "Oh, you can really taste the terroir." Can you? Like, what are you talking about? What does that mean?
You feel like it's like, shut up.
Yeah.
Like, shut up. No, it's red. Like, and the awesome man, this is a word that you said for like 5 episodes, and I was like, I'm not going to admit that I have no idea what he's saying. I don't know this word. I'd see it in writing, and I thought it was terrier. Like, I was like, there's dogs here. Like, I don't like. This is a very. I'm so glad that you're talking about this because it is a very specific term. It is very in the wine world.
It is.
But at this point, like, it's important. So
For sure.
help us,
Absolutely.
Colin.
Like, you do hear people talk about it, so it's one of those things that you can just kind of bank and bring up the next time you hear it. And part of the problem with defining it is there's no real translation from French to English. So what is it then? So it's really a fancy way of saying that a vineyard, or even a section of a vineyard, has a unique fingerprint that shows up in the taste of the wine. When you hear a winemaker say something like, I try to make terroir-driven wines, what they're really trying to say is they let nature, and what I mean by nature is when you think terroir, you want to think soil, you want to think climate, and even the slope and aspect of the grapes and the hills that the grapes are planted on. Slope, of course, being slope, and aspect being which way the hill is facing.
I was always bad at math.
And all of those components can dictate how the grapes are grown and what you're going to get from the grapes and what the final wine is going to bring up. And that kind of brings me back to the idea of somebody saying they can taste the terroir, because you can't really taste terroir as far as like it being a flavor, because it's not. It's more of, what, and this is where it gets kind of hard to understand, because like, how does the soil impact the final flavor, or how does the climate impact the final flavor? It's not something that you can just point to and be like, oh, this wine has terroir in it. It's more like limestone soils gives this wine X quality, which, may or may not be true. There's definitely some back and forth on the overall merits of terroir, especially when it comes to soils. To really understand what limestone soil does to wine grapes, you have to go down a super deep rabbit hole and taste a whole bunch of wine and really have a deep understanding of viticulture and growing grapes. When it comes to enjoying wine, it's more important from a standpoint of just knowing what it is. So when people talk about it, you can understand it, but it won't really increase the pleasure or enjoyment of wine just from a pure tasting standpoint.
So you may have just blown my mind a little bit there, because I've always heard people saying, oh yeah, it's got great terroir, sort of a thing. And I've always associated that with a wine that presents a lot of minerality, earthiness, something where it's not fruit forward, and it's relying more on those notes. So what you're telling me is you could still have something that doesn't present those flavor notes, but it's the conditions, it's the like you're talking about, the slope of the hill that the grapes are grown on, all that stuff, the terroir of where the grapes are grown that lead to whatever you're drinking. It's so kind of when people say, oh, you can taste the terroir, is that just total bullshit then? I mean, like, I'm torn on this.
Yeah, no, for sure. And there's a lot of debate about this, because like, can you really tell that soil type X has this type of influence on the final type of wine? Some people say they can. Like I haven't tried enough wine or done like a tasting where I've searched for terroir and different grapes with different. So I can't personally speak to it. But at the end of the day, you're right. It's more about the
conditions,
environment, the conditions that the grapes are grown in, more so than any flavor note that you might get.
Look, I'm going to make a personal rule for myself right now. Until I get hit with like a tasting epiphany and break down wine in a way that I have not been able to so far, in my mind, terroir is a great piece of vocabulary to have when discussing the environmental factors of a vineyard or estate, and really talking about why wine is so good when you're growing in the Rhone Valley or something like that. Like, terroir is the appropriate term to talk about the conditions and environment of a location. I am going to commit to never use the word terroir when I'm talking about the taste of a wine. It is a pretentious term that I will not believe the average person knows what they're saying when they say it. And I think, like, if from like the everyman Aaron on this show, like being like, do not use terroir to talk about the taste of your wine, but know what the word means in when you're talking about like vineyards and estates and locations. That is excellent. But yeah, setting that personal rule for myself moving forward, it's ridiculous.
No, that's fair. And that's definitely one of the criticisms of the idea. But, I've heard, again, I listened to a lot of different wine podcasts and stuff like that. And a lot of winemakers will swear by the idea of terroir and soil types and stuff like that. And again, I don't have the personal experience to say whether they're right or wrong, but it's definitely a good concept to be aware of.
I 100% believe that terroir impacts the taste of their wine. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't believe that someone can taste the wine and be like, oh yes, I can taste the terroir of this wine. It's very different from the terroir of this other wine.
I'm going to go the complete opposite direction of you, Aaron.
How
and
dare
I'm
you.
just going to start using it in situations where it really shouldn't apply. Like if Colin calls me next week and is like, hey, we're out at this restaurant, you should come check it out. I'll be like, what's the terroir though? Like, is it loud? Is it cool? Like, is it packed in there? Like, tell me a little bit about the terroir of the restaurant.
I don't really love the terroir of this conversation.
Oh, well done. See, you love it.
There we go.
I love it. I love this. Let's do that.
Should we make that a thing? Should we try to make terroir
I
using
think
it
we
incorrectly a thing?
Moving forward, free sticker or bonus points to whoever picks out when we use the word terroir incorrectly on purpose in future episodes.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that.
That's great. Fantastic.
Well done.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk about with terroir, and hopefully, Aaron, I was able to teach you something.
I learned some.
Good.
I did too. And it was super interesting. Just, definitely got me thinking too, just about that and wanting to, we're joking around a little bit about it, but I want to learn a little bit more about it and, experiment and get a little bit deeper into it and just see if anything that I learn contradicts the idea that it is kind of like a silly term and a very like undefined aspect of wine drinking and enjoying. And I'm sure like an expert winemaker listening to this podcast, which by the way, thanks for listening, might be like,
Thanks,
no,
James.
that's completely, you're missing something, and definitely invite you to let us know and come on in. But like you're kind of saying, Aaron, for the everyday wine drinker, it's a little bit of an interesting thing. And it seems like a very loose term to allow people to use it in just like a lot of ways that may not 100% be applicable all the time. So interesting. Be cautious when you hear somebody using that term is my takeaway. But also experiment and learn more about it. All right. Well, again, thanks Colin. Let's see if we can taste the terroir in today's wine.
Oh man, I can smell the terroir. The terroir is just wafting out of my glass.
Well, let's get into it, see what we can pick up.
Tastes like wine.
All right, well, here we are. We've got our Grounded by Josh Phelps Cabernet Sauvignon. I see you guys already have it in your glasses and have your noses in there. So, Colin, I'll go to you, buddy. What are you picking up? Oh, Colin right now, listener, is coughing his face off. I think he's got a wrong pipe situation. So, Aaron, you're up, bud.
Yeah, I want to start off by saying I'm in no way mocking the amount of focus that this producer specifically put on the importance of terroir to the creation of their wine. I do very much believe that is an important aspect of the creation of taste of wine. I was simply mocking the average drinker who uses that word to sound fancy. That being said, to avoid fancy words altogether, I smell vanilla. No, this is a very, I really like the smell of this wine. Like as soon as you pour it, we've had different experiences with like some you really have to get in there, and some like this has a really nice aroma just right from the pour, and big vanilla right off the beginning. And I gotta be honest, I think now that I'm getting better at, now that I'm drinking more wine, I think vanilla is one of my favorite scents. When I smell vanilla coming off a red wine, I get pretty stoked.
Yeah,
love it.
No.
Colin, are you breathing? Are you back with us?
No.
Colin tasting wine through his nose.
No, I'm getting over a cough, but it's coming back. I'm getting quite a bit like dark fruits, some really nice blackberry, maybe some plum in there. But yeah, and absolutely the vanilla's in there as well. I think this is aged in oak, French oak, which would absolutely give some of that vanilla off. Joel?
The only other note that I'll call out that you guys haven't mentioned is strawberry. I got a lot of strawberry when I first stuck my nose in there.
Yeah, I'm in on that.
And I'm not gonna judge it by the smell. I think it smells like It's a well-made wine, and it smells like something that the personal Joel wine interest doesn't align totally with. So I'm putting that to the side
Oh,
and being
that was like a
Okay.
very complicated way of saying Jolie don't likey.
yeah.
No. I'm not saying that yet. I'm not saying that yet at all. I'm just saying the smell reminds me of things I don't love about some wines, but I'm keeping an open mind. I'm just letting you guys know so we can, ride
Yeah.
this wave together. But overall, nice. And yes, picking up definitely everything you guys said. Vanilla. I mean, it smells like it's going to be a strong wine. Like it's going to be a big wine.
Is it that hint? Because I do want to say, Joe, when I very first poured this wine, I had a similar harkening back to the Carbon Merlot that had that weird like medicinal flavor. Because there is,
Well, it's not that.
like it's not that, but there is like this related some kind of overarching heavier like just scent, and maybe it's the alcohol. This is a heavy alcohol wine, and maybe that is it. Like maybe it is like the fact that it's like the 13.9, it has that kind of burny scent on top, but there is something that the immediate reaction was like, ooh, like I don't know about this, as opposed to some of the other wines we've had. They've just been like really like more maybe fruit heavy, that have been more like welcoming, like this is a little bit more intense. So I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying.
I'm actually a little worried about how fruit heavy this one smells to me. That's my concern.
That's what I was going to say, Joel. I feel like when you said something you don't like, I immediately thought fruity, because this is absolutely on the nose a fruit bomb. It's just like ripe fruit on top of ripe fruit, but you get the sweeter fruit notes. It's almost like that ripeness leads to a kind of sweetness in the nose.
Okay, well, let's give it a sip, see if our noses deceive us here.
Hate when that happens.
All right, this time I will go back to Colin first to kick us off.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of fruit. There's no doubt about that. It's very, very much a fruit-forward wine. If you think about where they're selling it, in a place like Target, the idea is to make a wine that is going to be pleasing to the masses, right? And I think something like this that is very fruit-forward, it's not terribly complex. I think that's what you have here. I think you just have a fruit bomb. I will say it's not too much, in my opinion, and maybe I'll say that for the review, but it's definitely very fruity.
Aaron?
Yeah, not much to add. From a structure side, like nice like grippiness to it. I like tans, like I like that aspect of it. A little bit thinner than I thought it was gonna be, and kind of like the after when you first sip, you got like that real fruity, like full flavor, and then a moment later, it just really thins out and goes, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. It's just kind of like an aspect of the wine that I wasn't expecting based on the fullness of the aroma and the taste itself. Alcohol-wise, not super unbalanced. It's a heavy alcohol wine, but it's not punching you in the face by any means. Very dry.
And I like the tannin. The tannin is...
it's a good feel.
It's grippy, but it's not aggressively grippy. It just kind of hugs the gums in a nice way. It feels like you're getting a nice warm gum hug.
Well, while the taste thinned out after a second, the rest of it's still hanging on my teeth. Just like,
well, it's funny. You say thinned out, and I definitely I don't think this is a thin wine at all, and I don't think that's what you're suggesting. But I know what you're saying too, and I will tell you the
flavor thing. It's not a body thing. I don't know how to say it.
Ooh, well, what I was gonna say is I was surprised that there was a pretty decent acidity throughout the sip. That maybe is the thing that prevents it from like sitting and remaining in your mouth and on your tongue and like feeling heavy and just like it's just fruitiness covering your mouth. There's some acidity in there that cuts through it too at the end of the day to make the experience in the mouthfeel. I hate saying that word, but I don't think there's another word I can use for it right now.
I'll drink an IPA and say the same thing.
Makes it pretty pleasant. That's that's true. But yeah, that was something that kind of surprised me. But I will say too, kind of what you were saying, Colin, like nothing else really surprised me about drinking this. Like I think it was true to everything that we smelled on it. It was there in the taste. So, but don't disagree with what you guys are saying. I agree. Like structurally pretty balanced, I will say.
It is.
That makes for a nice sip. So
It is a well-made wine. I'll say that. Like, you can definitely tell that Josh and his team cared about this. It's not just haphazardly thrown together. It seems like,
Definitely.
Everything on the palate makes sense. There's nothing that's like gross or out of place. The structure is nice. I think it works with the fruit. It's pretty bold as far as structure is concerned, but it's not aggressively bold. It's nicely bold.
All right, cool. So I think we pretty much called out everything that we can pick out in this wine. I'm kind of excited for the reviews here because I feel like we might have a lot to talk about. So let's get into it.
Yeah, but did they like it? It's time for the review.
All right, for this one, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 10. You each get one guess. The person closest to it gets to decide if they go first or second. Okay? I'm going to write down...
Price is Right, just this.
Nope, just closest. I'm going to write down my number. Okay, pick a number. Aaron, pick a number.
4.
Colin?
2.
Aaron gets to decide.
All right. Yeah, actually, I think this is actually one of the easier ones for me recently. I'm gonna say this is a kitchen table wine for me because of 2 things. One, it is not offensive. It is a good drinker. It has a cool story. It has a cool label. I can see drinking this with a meal. I can imagine putting it out when I have people over for people to pour. And at $15 to $17, that's a very, very accessible wine. And I would be happy to pick this up again, especially if, again, I'm thinking of hosting folks and I want to grab an assortment of wines. This would be one I would be happy to add to my table to talk about. I think if this was a $29.99 bottle, I might have a serious question about it. But I think if the price point is, I'm totally happy with it. So kitchen table, solid. What do you think, Joel?
I'm actually going to take a minute. I felt pretty confident about where I was going to put this. I'm going to put this on my kitchen table, but I got to be honest with you. It's teetering off the back of the kitchen table. I've pushed other stuff on the kitchen table, and it's about to fall off in the back, and I hope somebody sees it and grabs it before it does fall and splashes and crashes all over the floor. But it's on the kitchen table. And at first I was like, this is probably a closet wine, but I'm going to elevate it to on the kitchen table. Here's my thoughts on this. This, to me, is kind of like a one-note thing. I was already pretty honest too up front about how the big fruit and stuff, it doesn't totally jive with my personal taste in wine, but I'm putting that aside. But I do, at the end of the day, I think it's kind of like a one-note wine, right? And there's not, after the initial sip, the initial taste, the initial experience, there's not a whole heck of a lot else going on. However, that one note is pretty darn good. It's pretty darn good. And again, for the price point, I think it's good. And it's we talked a lot up front just about kind of the bulk wine thing and all that good stuff. This is the best bulk wine. This is the best. If we in the grocery store showdown, if one of us would have brought this, we would have blown the other people's minds. This is really, really good. And to think that this came from, I picked it up at a Target, that's pretty awesome. This is a quality.
Joel, funny story. Before you logged on, Colin and I were sitting here and we said the same thing.
Yep, for sure.
We were talking about the fact that we found this in the grocery store. We're like, this seems like a really, it's obviously before we really tried it and tasted it. We were like, oh man, if we can go back in time and our grocery store wines are this and Eagle Gal, that's a totally different ballgame.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. So that's my shtick. I've talked too much. Colin, you said something earlier that I think really, really hit home for me too, which may have been the thing
Terroir.
That pushed me to the terroir. Yeah.
Said terroir.
Might have been the thing that pushed it to the table for me, which was, you can tell that there is love and thought put into this wine for sure. And for that to remain at the volume they're producing it is pretty cool. So that's what I'm saying. Colin?
Yeah, for sure. This is definitely a top tier grocery store wine. There's no doubt about that. This is better than probably 99% of the other wine you can find at Target. If you're going to Target to buy red wine, buy this one, because you're probably not going to find a better one at Target. So with that being said, I'm also going to put it on the table. I think you guys nailed it. It's not terribly complex, but it's super easy drinking. Like there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's enjoyable as far as the mouthfeel is concerned. I think people would, if you wanted to show somebody a red wine who might not be totally into red wine, this might be a good one because it's just so fruity. There's not a lot of those other extra notes that might turn people off. Is it crazy, awesome, gonna blow your mind? No. But I think it's worth picking up, and you can tell it's well made. It's well made. It's just not, it's not like he was trying to make the best wine you're ever gonna have. He was trying to make a good wine that he can sell to a lot of people, and I think he did a really good job at that.
Right.
I think that comparative note, Colin, that you just hit too is like really, really important because we've talked about on the show often that like we don't think you have to go out and spend $50, $60 on a bottle of wine, have a good bottle of wine, but there are cases where you can spend like $2 or $3 more and have like a significantly better wine. And this is a good example of, since this is being sold at Target and Total Wine and probably other supermarkets across different regions, this could be a case where like you could spend $12.99 or $13.99 on Apothic or 19 Crimes or Layer Cake, or you could spend $2 more and have a significantly better quality red wine. You're still walking into walking in your home or walking into a party with a $15 to $16 bottle of wine, but this is just feels like a much more thoughtful and serious and quality bottle than, walking in with a bottle with a picture of Snoop Dogg's face on it.
Okay, so all that to say, I think just give me an objection if you do. I don't think we'll have any, but I would say not a waste of your wine on this one. On the Grounded by Josh Phelps.
Absolutely not.
Cabernet Sauvignon. There you go.
Certified not a
of your
waste.
wine, folks. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. Definitely, if you, like Aaron said, if you're going to try to find something quick and you want like a really good wine that's really quick, there's a Target everywhere and you want to run in and grab it. Safe to do it here with this Grounded by Josh Phelps Cab Sauvignon. Enjoy it. Think of us when you drink it. Maybe let us know what you think when you drink it. Aaron, tell the listener how they can interact.
I would love to. First and foremost, coming out with us on Instagram at Stop Wasting Your Wine. It's definitely our main point of contact. There are so many cool people just in that community and going back and forth. Send us a message. We always respond. You have recommendations, send them our way. Thoughts on the episodes, appreciate it. And if you are in the industry and would like to come on the show, we're venturing more into interviews and would love to have you. Check us out at stopwastingyourwine.com. We try to put up all our reviews. You can also listen to the episodes directly on there. If you do not have a podcast platform that you are married to, you can just go straight through our website. Otherwise, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, probably a plethora of other places as well. You can find Colin on Facebook. And just Colin just sitting alone on Facebook in it's a big white room. It's like this big empty virtual room. The Colin sitting with his Apple Vision Pro, just ready to drink VR wine with you.
For the listener at home, Colin is doing the Jonah Hill cut it off motion at the neck right now. I don't think, is the Facebook not happening anymore? Is that done? Is that gone? Are we done?
No, it's still there, but I don't have the time to do with it what I want to. So, I'd love to be able to interact more, but I just haven't had the time to make it the way I wanted to. So you can still...
Colin will write back to you.
Yeah, you can come hang out with me, but there's not a lot going on, if I'm being completely honest.
Okay, so
wow.
Come over to Instagram. There's
is
a
where
lot.
it's at,
Yeah.
baby. All right, so come to us Instagram.
The Terroir over on Instagram is a lot better than the Facebook.
Oh
lot
my
better.
God. Instagram's Terroir.
Yeah.
Fire
Chef's
right now.
kiss.
Good.
Fire.
Yeah.
So good.
All right. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And if you're still here, thank you. Thanks for going the whole way through. We appreciate you. We'll see you again next week for another really great episode and some more fun with wine. So thanks for hanging out. See you next time. And remember, stop wasting your wine.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.